The winter of 1802 settled over London like a judgment that could not be appealed. Its grey breath crept through narrow streets and wide avenues alike, pressing down on those already bent by hardship. For Amelia Hargrave, the cold was more than weather. It was the quiet proof of how fast a life could fall apart. Only months ago her name had been spoken with warmth. Doors had opened. Invitations had arrived without asking. Now she walked through the crowded marketplace, with her head held high, while whispers followed her like shadows. Her father's sudden death had left nothing behind but debts, written in a cruel, unyielding hand. Creditors circled. Friends vanished. Respect faded, as if it had never truly been hers. She stopped at a small stall she would once have passed without notice. The carrots were thin and uneven, laid out on rough cloth. As she examined them, two women nearby leaned closer together, their bonnets almost touching. "A Hargrave reduced to scraps," one murmured. "So pitiable," the other replied. "They say she seeks work." Imagine a lady cooking for wages. Amelia felt the words strike sharp and hot. She kept her face calm, though shame burned in her throat. Pride was the last thing left to her, and she would not surrender it. She paid the vendor with steady fingers and stepped away, her worn cloak tugged by the wind as if urging her forward into a future she did not yet understand. At the postal counter, the clerk slid an envelope toward her without meeting her eyes. The seal caught her attention at once, a black raven stamped in silver. Ravenshire Hall. Her heart beat faster as she opened the letter. The words inside were formal and precise. The Duke of Ravenshire required a household cook for a series of formal inspections and royal engagements. The pay was generous, the duration unclear. Her mother's lessons returned to her in that moment. Cooking had never been meant as survival. It had been a gentle skill, taught for charm and refinement. Now it stood between Amelia and hunger. To accept meant admitting that her old life was gone. To refuse meant ruin. 2 days later, she stepped into a hired carriage, leaving London behind. The countryside unfolded in pale winter light. Bare trees and open fields stretched on, stark yet beautiful. Amelia watched in silence, thinking how beauty could still exist after loss. When Ravenshire Hall finally appeared through the mist, it rose like something untouched by misfortune. Tall stone walls, manicured grounds, a world built for those who never fell. Her stomach tightened as she stepped down onto the gravel drive. She smoothed her simple skirts and drew a breath. The Duke met her in the entrance hall. Tall windows framed him in cold light and fireglow. Edmund Ravenshire was younger than she expected, his features sharp, his posture controlled. His expression revealed little, as though he had trained himself never to feel too much. "Miss Hargrave," he said, inclining his head slightly. "Your arrival is timely." She curtsied. "Your Grace, thank you for receiving me." He did not waste words. "This arrangement is strictly professional. You're here to cook. Nothing more. Ravenshire Hall has endured enough gossip, and I will not invite further complications." He paused, his tone measured. "You're not wife material for a man of my station. I trust we understand each other." The words cut deeper than she expected. Still, she showed no reaction. "My only intention is to fulfill my duties," she replied evenly, "nothing more." For a brief moment, something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, perhaps? He nodded. "Very well. Mrs. Linton will show you to the kitchens." Amelia followed the housekeeper through long corridors lined with stern portraits. The weight of judgment pressed from the walls themselves. Yet beneath the sting of humiliation, resolve took root. She had survived worse. The kitchen greeted her with warmth and the scent of herbs. She set down her bag and looked around. This would be her world now, and she would not fail in it. Above, watching from the upper hall, Edmund found his thoughts unsettled. He had hired her for convenience, yet her composure lingered in his mind longer than he liked. The early days passed in quiet routine. Amelia rose before dawn, lighting the hearth while the house still slept. She worked with calm precision, her movements steady and sure. The other servants had expected awkwardness from a fallen gentlewoman. Instead, they saw confidence. Edmund noticed too. He caught glimpses of her as he passed the kitchen doorway. She never complained, never flinched. There was a light in her focus that unsettled him. One morning he lingered longer than intended, watching her test a sauce. She seemed most herself when she believed no one was watching. He left abruptly, irritated by his own interest. Amelia kept her attention on her work. When Mrs. Linton mentioned a damaged silver ladle once belonging to the late Duchess, Amelia offered to restore it. That afternoon she polished and reshaped it with care, leaving it in the Duke's study without a note. When Edmund discovered it, restored and gleaming, he sought her out. "This was repaired with skill," he said, holding it up. "I assume you were responsible." "I wished only to restore something of value," she replied. "You had no obligation." "No," she said gently, "but it seemed right." Her sincerity left him momentarily at a loss. He nodded and withdrew, unsettled by the warmth she stirred. Not all watched her kindly. A maid named Clara whispered that Amelia's grace hinted at ambition. Rumours grew quickly, twisting into something darker. When the whispers reached Edmund, his response was swift. "Miss Hargrave is under my employ," he declared. "Any who undermine her dignity undermine my authority." The servants fell silent. Amelia overheard fragments, and felt both grateful and afraid. Preparations soon began for a royal visit. Pressure tightened the air. Amelia noticed Edmund's restlessness, his long nights, his clipped tone. She learned, through whispers, of a political betrayal that had driven him from ambition. One evening, delivering a tray, she glimpsed a document referencing the scandal. Sympathy stirred in her chest. He too had lost something he once trusted. As the visit approached, Amelia worked with unwavering discipline. She wanted him to succeed, though she did not yet understand why. High above, Edmund watched her move through the hall, confident and calm. A question stirred in him, unwelcome and persistent. Neither yet knew how deeply their paths were already bound. The day of the royal visit arrived beneath a sky the colour of dull silver. Wind cut across the grounds of Ravenshaw Hall, sharp enough to sting the skin, and every servant moved with tense purpose. The estate had been awake since before dawn, yet it still felt as if time itself was pressing down, urging perfection from every corner. In the kitchen, Amelia stood steady at the centre of controlled chaos. Pans warmed, sauces simmered, and orders moved from her lips with calm authority. She felt the weight of the day settle deep in her chest, but she did not allow it to show. Every dish mattered. Every detail carried consequence. Edmund, above in the great hall, greeted his guests with practiced composure. His posture was flawless, his tone polite, but beneath the surface his nerves were tightly drawn. This visit could restore his standing or bury it beyond recovery. He trusted no one with that truth, yet without intending to, he found his thoughts drifting toward the kitchen below. As the first courses were served, the rhythm of the event seemed to hold. Plates returned empty, murmurs of approval drifted down the corridors. Amelia allowed herself a small breath of relief. Then a footman rushed in, pale and shaken. "The French entree," he said. "It was plated incorrectly. The garnish placement violates protocol." The head cook faltered, panic flooding his face. Amelia did not hesitate. She stepped forward, voice calm, hands already moving. "There is time," she said. "We will correct it." Her knowledge was exact. She rearranged the plates with care, adjusting what might seem trivial to most, but meant everything in royal circles. The corrected dishes were sent out with seconds to spare. Upstairs, Edmund noticed the shift. A steward whispered hurriedly to him. When the course was praised by the royal cousin himself, Edmund's relief was sharp and sudden. But it was followed by confusion. Later, he sought Amelia out. "You intervened," he said quietly, his gaze intent. "You knew the protocol." She hesitated, then nodded. "My mother insisted I learn such things." He studied her, something unreadable passing through his eyes. "You were raised for more than service." "Life does not always allow us to remain where we were raised," she replied softly. Before he could respond, Mrs. Linton arrived with urgent news. Someone from the royal party had noticed Amelia's involvement. Questions were already forming. Amelia felt dread settle over her. "Your Grace, I should leave. My presence risks your reputation." "No," Edmund said at once. "You will not." The firmness of his refusal startled her. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You acted with loyalty and skill. I will not allow that to be turned against you." Despite his words, rumors spread quickly. Servants whispered. Glances sharpened. Amelia felt herself becoming a subject rather than a person. That night, when the estate finally quieted, Amelia sat alone in her small room. Edmund's defense echoed in her mind, stirring gratitude and something far more dangerous. She knew the cost of scandal. She had lived it once already. By morning she had decided. Before dawn she packed her few belongings. Each folded dress felt like a farewell. When she stepped outside, frost silvered the ground, and a carriage waited by the gate. As she lifted her foot to the step, the sound of hooves broke the silence. Edmund emerged through the mist, riding hard, his coat unfastened, his expression urgent. He dismounted, and crossed the distance between them in long strides. "What do you believe you are doing?" he demanded. "I am leaving," she said, her voice steady, despite the tears burning behind her eyes. "For your sake." He stopped before her, breath visible in the cold air. "You presume my reputation matters more to me than your absence." She shook her head. "You cannot risk everything for me." "I already have," he replied, quieter now, "the moment I allowed myself to see you clearly." Her heart thudded painfully. "Your Grace, this path leads only to ruin." "Then I will walk it knowingly," he said. "But I will not watch you disappear to preserve a world that has already failed us both." Silence stretched between them, heavy with all that remained unspoken. Amelia lowered her gaze, trembling. "You do not truly know what you ask." "I know enough," Edmund said. "I know that you have brought order where there was only restraint, loyalty where there was suspicion, and light where I believed none remained." Her breath caught. The carriage stood forgotten behind her. The cold duke she had first met was gone, replaced by a man standing at the edge of something he had long denied himself. And neither of them could turn back now. The morning air stood frozen around them, as if the world itself waited for Amelia's answer. The carriage driver shifted uncomfortably, sensing he was no longer needed, yet unsure when to leave. Amelia felt the weight of every past loss press against her chest. She had learned what hope could cost. She had learned how quickly it could be taken away. "Your Grace," she said at last, her voice quiet but firm, "if I stay, the rumors will not stop. Society does not forgive easily. You will be bound to scandal because of me." Edmund stepped closer, his expression stripped of the careful distance she had first known. "I have lived years guarding myself against rumor, against disappointment, against feeling anything at all. And it brought me nothing but silence." He met her gaze fully. "You did not create this danger. You revealed how empty my caution had become." Tears slipped down her cheeks despite her effort to remain composed. "I was prepared to be invisible again," she whispered. "I thought it kinder." He shook his head. "There is nothing kind in denying the truth. Not to yourself. Not to me." The gate creaked softly as the wind passed through it. Amelia looked once more at Ravenshaw Hall, the stone walls catching the pale light of dawn. She had come there prepared to serve and leave unnoticed. Instead, she had found purpose, respect, and something far more frightening. She turned back to Edmund. "If I accept what you offer, there is no returning to safety." "I do not want safety," he replied. "I want honesty. I want partnership. I want you." The simplicity of his words undid her. Amelia stepped away from the carriage and toward him. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Then I will stay. Not as your cook, not as a shadow, but as myself." Relief crossed his face like the breaking of ice. He took her hands, warming them between his own. "That is all I have ever asked." Their decision did not quiet the world at once. Whispers followed swiftly, sharper than before, yet Edmund faced them openly. He stood beside Amelia at every turn, his presence unmistakable, his authority unwavering. What could have destroyed him instead reshaped him. Their wedding was held quietly in the small chapel near the edge of the estate. There was no grand display, no crowd of curious eyes. Only a handful of witnesses who had seen Amelia's dignity long before her title changed. She walked the aisle with calm grace, her simple gown untouched by jewels yet radiant all the same. Edmund waited for her not as a distant duke, but as a man who had learned the cost of restraint. When they spoke their vows, there was no doubt left between them, only the steady promise of shared strength. In the days that followed, Ravenshaw Hall felt transformed. Servants regarded their new duchess, not with fear or envy, but respect, earned through quiet perseverance. Amelia moved through the halls as she always had, steady and composed, unchanged by her elevation. Edmund found peace in ways he had not expected. Together they walked the frost-lined paths, speaking not of society's judgment, but of the life they would build beyond it. The past did not vanish, but it no longer ruled them. Though whispers lingered at the edges of their world, they carried no power. Amelia and Edmund had crossed every line meant to divide them, and discovered that love, when chosen with courage, could withstand even the harshest winters. And in that truth, they finally found home.